Hi, so in today's video we're going to be looking at our very first coding concepts, statements and variables. And if you've never touched code before, this is a really good place to start because getting these fundamentals in your head is going to really help when it comes to understanding how your code works. My name is Christian and this is Learning C# in Unity for Beginners. So, let's crack on. We're going to be using some examples in this video, so I'm going to start off by opening up Unity, creating a new game object and attaching a new C# script. And if you want to code along with me, you go ahead and do the same. The reason we need to create a game object for our script to be attached to is because C# is an object-oriented programming language. We then need to open this up in Visual Studio. All C# scripts created using Unity come with these using statements and a start and an update method as default, but you don't need to worry about that just now. So first of all, let's have a look at what a statement is. A statement, simply put, is an order you make for the system to do something. So, how do we do this? As a basic example, we're going to start off by using the keyword print to try and print something into our console window. You can write this within your start method because any code we write in here is going to be called upon when our script first runs. We then need to open our brackets up to tell our system what it is that we want to print. I'm just going to write hello YouTube. I'll close my brackets off and remember to close off my statement with a semicolon. Notice that I've put my text in quotation marks to say that I want to print that text exactly and not a reference to something else within our code. And if we save this, head into Unity and press play, we should see our message pop up. A semicolon denotes the end of our statement, so if we want to add another statement, we can go to the next line and add it here. Good thing to mention at this point that statements are executed in the order that they appear. So if we save our script and press play now, our code will execute our first statement, followed by our second one. And if we want to, we don't even need to add our statement onto the next line. As long as statements are separated by that semicolon, they'll still work exactly the same as before. Saying this, it is better practice to separate your statements on different lines just to make your code a little bit less confusing later on. Statements that need to be executed together, for instance if they're based on the same condition, can be grouped together by something we call code blocks, and these are done using curly brackets, which we can see we're already making use of within our start method. As we've just seen, a statement usually starts with a keyword, and a keyword is something that our computer understands. In our case just now, it was print, to print something into the console window, but every keyword has a different and specific purpose, and the most common purposes that you're going to be using when you first get started are the following. First, declaring a variable, where your keyword states what kind of variable it is that you're going to be declaring, and we'll come back to that in a minute. Declaring a method, where the keyword states what kind of data we want to return. Creating something called a conditional statement, where we want a certain set of instructions to be carried out if certain conditions are met. The keywords for this are if and else. And exiting a function where the keyword is return. So now we've had a look at statements and how we can use them, let's make things a little bit more interesting by adding some variables. But first, what are variables? A variable, in essence, is a container that holds a certain value or data that can or will change over time. The types of data a variable holds depend on what keyword we use when declaring it. Remember a minute ago when we were talking about declaring a variable using statements? There we go. So the keywords for these are int, which is short for integer and means a whole number, float, which means any decimal number, a string, which is a piece of text, a bool, which is short for boolean and is a true or false, and a game object, which is an actual object in your scene. So when using a variable, there's usually three things that we're going to do. First, we need to declare a variable by specifying its type, by using the keywords that we've just looked at, and then we need to give it a name. Second, we then need to assign a value to this variable. Finally, we can modify our variable using something called operators. So, let's apply this to the code we've already written. Above our start method, I'm going to declare two variables and give each appropriate names for the data that they're going to hold. My age and my name. Then, within our start method, I'm going to assign these variables values. And lastly, I'm going to modify one of these variables because I'm not actually 20. So, we can see in the previous line of code, I've taken the variable my age, which we've initially given a value of 20, and then added 5 to it using an addition operator. We've then assigned this new value to the variable my age. If we then use what we've just learned about statements to print this information into the console window in a way that we can read, notice we've used more addition operators within our statement to add our variables and our written text together. And if we press play, we should get something like this. Now we can even go back to our code and declare multiple variables of the same type at the same time and even give them values straight away. This is useful if you wanted to make your code a little bit more compact. Notice how we've added the letter F to the end of the numbers that we've assigned as values to our variables because they're floats. So the F confirms that they're decimal values. And once again, I'll add this into a print statement, save my script, head into Unity, press play, and there we go. Now, there are one or two things about variables that we haven't mentioned in this episode, which we'll mention briefly now, but we'll go into more depth in a later episode. Firstly, there's another kind of variable that is commonly used, and this is called arrays. This is where we can store multiple variables of the same type, and we're going to be looking at this in the next episode. Another thing is accessibility levels and scope of our variables. And now these both deal with how we can access our variables depending on how we declare them and whereabouts in our script they're declared. But again, we'll come back onto that in a later episode. There's no need for any confusion at this point. And that's it. I hope everything's making sense to you so far. I know this has been a pretty information heavy episode, but I felt that it was appropriate to talk about these two things together to get us started off. But as we progress through the series, I'm going to try and keep it to one concept per episode, just as not to have an information overload. If you're feeling confident and want to put what you've learned to the test, I really recommend going and checking out Nicky B's videos. He's got a great one about using booleans for Unity's animation system, and then anything by Brackeys is fantastic, so go and check that out as well. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you've got any questions, pop them in the comments below, or head over to our Discord server, Diffusion Games, and I'll see you for the next episode where we're going to be talking about arrays.